Every Battlefield storyline explained. From 1915 to 2142, Battlefield has dropped players into chaotic wars with crumbling buildings, screaming teammates, and the occasional C4-laden Jeep. But somewhere in the smoke and rubble, a storyline. Multiple, actually. And believe it or not, some of them even connect. Let's get into it. Battlefield 1, 1915 to 1918. Set during World War I, Battlefield 1 presents 6 distinct war stories, each showing a different face of the conflict. Storm of Steel follows unnamed Harlem Hellfighters across the Western Front in 1918. You play as multiple soldiers, each dying and passing the narrative on to another, capturing the futility and horror of World War I. The vignette uses death as a storytelling mechanic, emphasizing the brutality and disposability of life on the battlefield. The design choice here is intentional. There are no names, no cutscenes of hope, just the message. You are not expected to survive. Through Mud and Blood takes place during the Battle of Cambrai. You play as Daniel Edwards, a former chauffeur-turned-tank driver who joins a British Mark V tank crew. The commander, McManus, is initially distrustful of Edwards due to his inexperience. After navigating intense German defenses and retrieving spark plugs under sniper fire, the crew begins to trust Edwards. As the crew faces one deadly skirmish after another, they bond over cigarettes and sarcasm, typical of soldiers forced into absurd survival scenarios. The story ends with Edwards sacrificing himself to save his squad by defending the broken-down tank against waves of German troops. Friends in High Places stars Clyde Blackburn, a roguish American pilot who impersonates a Royal Flying Corps officer to steal a plane. Alongside his co-pilot Wilson, Blackburn bombs a German airfield, dogfights with aces, and crash lands in enemy territory. Wilson is gravely injured, and Blackburn risks everything to get him home. The mission includes a massive Zeppelin battle and showcases how reckless charm sometimes wins wars. Clyde's redemption arc is the emotional core, hinting at deeper legacy connections in the franchise. Avanti Savoia centers on Italian shock trooper Luca Vincenzo Cocciola during the Battle of Vittorio Veneto. Donning a heavy armor suit, Luca launches a solo assault on entrenched Austrian forces to rescue his twin brother, Matteo. The steel-plated exosuit makes Luca nearly invincible in combat, turning you into a one-man war machine until he finds Matteo mortally wounded. The suit becomes meaningless in the face of loss. The emotional climax is Luca cradling his brother in the snow, while the war rages on. The Praetor Runner follows Frederick Bishop, an aging ANZ AC messenger during the Gallipoli campaign. Tasked with delivering critical orders, Bishop navigates trench warfare, artillery barrages, and chaotic beach assaults. He eventually sacrifices himself, staying behind to hold off Turkish forces, so his fellow soldiers, including a young recruit he's mentoring, can escape. His final message delivery is to ensure the kid makes it out alive. A passing of the torch in a war that chewed through generations. Nothing Is Written shifts to the Arab Revolt, featuring Zara Gufran, a female Bedouin rebel working with Lawrence of Arabia. She infiltrates Ottoman camps, sabotages armored trains, and steals enemy documents. As the first playable female protagonist in Battlefield history, Zara fights colonial oppression in a dusty, open-ended map filled with sabotage opportunities. The mission climaxes with a daring assault on a heavily defended train, showcasing guerrilla warfare against imperial machinery and highlighting the often overlooked role of women in wartime resistance. Battlefield 5, 1939 to 1945. Returning to World War II, Battlefield 5 features similarly structured war stories, diving into lesser-known perspectives across multiple theaters of war. Prologue. My Country Calling is a montage showing soldiers from different fronts and backgrounds, establishing the global scale of the war. You briefly play as Peter Mueller, a German tank commander. This short segment doubles as a tutorial and tone setter, reinforcing the idea that war makes no heroes, only survivors. Under No Flag stars Billy Bridger, a British convict recruited into the Special Boat Section for sabotage missions in North Africa. Paired with the seasoned veteran George Mason, Billy must overcome fear and incompetence. Their mission to destroy Luftwaffe airfields involves stealth, explosives, and a last-minute escape in a stolen plane. Billy grows from a self-serving criminal to an accidental war hero. The duo's banter offers some of the game's rare humor, and their chemistry becomes a highlight. Nordlys is set in Nazi-occupied Norway and follows Solveig Fia Bjornstad, a resistance fighter rescuing her mother, Astrid, who is held captive for her knowledge of heavy water production, crucial to the Nazi nuclear program. Solveig skis through snow-covered terrain, infiltrates facilities, and kills German soldiers with precision and ice-cold efficiency. The story quietly condemns occupation and reflects Norway's real resistance efforts. The mother-daughter duo burns down the lab and escapes, making a rare escape in a game full of tragedy. Tirailleur explores France's liberation through the eyes of Dima Sucé, a Senegalese colonial soldier in the French army. Alongside his brother Idrissa, Dima battles German forces and racist French officers who dismiss their contributions. The narrative centers on forgotten soldiers and colonial erasure. The final assault on a German-held chateau ends in victory, but at a cost. Idrissa dies, and even after their sacrifice, the tirailleurs are denied recognition. Their story closes with Dami's voice asking who history will remember. The Last Tiger flips the perspective. You play as Peter Müller, commander of a German Tiger tank crew in the war's dying days. As the Allies push into Berlin, Müller questions his loyalty and the Nazi ideology. His gunner Hartmann blindly follows propaganda, while the loader is quietly terrified. They hold the line against American forces but are ultimately overwhelmed. The ending is ambiguous. As Müller surrenders, his crewmate levels a pistol at him, believing him to be a deserter. A gunshot rings out, the screen cuts to black. Battlefield 1942 and 1943. These titles prioritize multiplayer. Battlefield 1942 lets players reenact historic battles across the Pacific and European theaters, including Stalingrad, Wake Island, and El Alamein. No single-player campaign. Battlefield 1943 offers similar multiplayer-focused gameplay on consoles, highlighting Iwo Jima and Guadalcanal. The only story is the one you make. It's the story of that time you stole a Zero, dive-bombed a sip on a tank, and then bayoneted a sniper before crashing your plane into a flagpole. No cutscenes, just Battlefield. Battlefield Vietnam. Again, multiplayer only. It simulates key Vietnam War battles like Operation Hastings, the Battle of Hue, and the Fall of Saigon. Helicopters, flamethrowers, Huey gunships, and rock and roll. It's all chaos, no narrative, unless you count war crimes committed with napalm and CCR blaring in the background. Bad Company. Early 2000s. Preston Marlowe joins Bad Company, a squad of expendable soldiers doing dirty work. Alongside Sarge, Sweetwater, and Haggard, you uncover mercenaries called the Legionnaires, who are being paid in gold bars. One heist leads to another, and the squad goes rogue to chase the treasure. They cross into neutral territory, accidentally start a war, capture the dictator of Surduristan, and destroy half the country's infrastructure. In the end, they steal a gold-laden helicopter and crash into enemy territory. The final scene shows the Legionnaire commander crawling out of a burning wreck, setting up a sequel. Bad Company is unique for its tone. Snarky, cinematic, and irreverent. Bad Company 2. The sequel opens with Operation Aurora in 1944. U.S. commandos extract Japanese scientist Dr. Aguirre, who warns them not to activate a prototype EMP weapon. They do. It wipes them out. In the present, Bad Company's new mission is to recover similar tech before Russian Colonel Kirilenko gets it. The trail leads through South America. They discover a downed World War II submarine with the prototype device inside. The squad gets betrayed by a CIA agent, Flynn dies, and Kirilenko activates the EMP, frying modern electronics across the region. The squad boards Kirilenko's plane mid-flight, fights him inside the fuselage, and blows the weapon. In the aftermath, they reflect on the chaos, but their humor remains intact. Sarge retires, everyone else gets kind of promoted. Battlefield 2, Modern Combat. A console-exclusive spin-off with a rare campaign, Modern Combat drops players into the heart of a Cold War-style conflict gone hot. NATO and China clash across Kazakhstan after a rogue broadcast frames each side for war crimes. The chaos isn't accidental, it's engineered by a secret organization called Burning Flag, which manipulates both factions with misinformation and propaganda. You begin as a NATO operative tasked with countering Chinese aggression, but as missions unfold, from urban assaults to tank warfare in the Kazakh desert, you start realizing that both factions are being fed false intelligence. Halfway through the campaign, the player switches sides, experiencing the same conflict through China's lens. Civilians die, alliances crumble, and the fog of war becomes literal and moral. Eventually, both sides uncover the existence of Commander 31, leader of Burning Flag, who plans to detonate nuclear warheads in key global cities to destabilize superpowers and usher in a new world order. The final mission is a desperate airstrike on his launch base amid nuclear countdown alarms. Depending on your allegiance, the ending changes, either NATO or China prevents the apocalypse, but both walk away questioning whether victory even meant anything. The campaign quietly introduced a theme that would define later Battlefield games: manipulation, misinformation, and the thin line between heroism and obedience. Battlefield 3, Henry Blackburn, a hardened U.S. Marine staff sergeant, is being interrogated by the CIA for alleged treason. As he recounts events, the story unfolds across flashbacks, pulling you into a complex web of terror, loyalty, and nuclear blackmail. The central threat is the PLR, People's Liberation and Resistance, a paramilitary organization based in Iran, led by the enigmatic Solomon, once a CIA informant, now a terrorist mastermind with access to stolen Russian suitcase nukes. The campaign begins in Iraqi Kurdistan, where Blackburn's squad, Misfit 1-3, investigates a missing Marine patrol and stumbles into an ambush orchestrated by the PLR. Moments later, a devastating earthquake levels the city. Blackburn barely survives, witnessing Solomon dragging away a teammate. What follows is a desperate attempt to stop Solomon's plan. detonate nukes in Paris and New York to spark a US-Russia war. The story shifts between perspectives, including Russian GRU agent Dmitry Dima Mayakovsky, who pursues Solomon's network from Moscow to Paris. Dima's mission fails, and a nuke detonates in Paris, killing tens of thousands. The emotional gravity of this scene stands as one of Battlefield's darkest. Meanwhile, back in the US, the CIA refuses to believe Blackburn's story, so in classic Battlefield fashion, he breaks free from custody, races through a subway filled with PLR operatives, and fights Solomon hand-to-hand on a moving train before finally killing him with a brick. The last remaining nuke is secured, saving New York. In parallel, Dima's closing monologue, written while dying of radiation poisoning, reflects on how men like him and Blackburn sacrificed everything to prevent the world from tearing itself apart, setting the stage for Battlefield 4's narrative continuation of Battlefield 4. Set in 2020, Wrecker leads Tombstone Squad, including Irish, Pack, and Dima, who returns from BF3. They extract a Chinese leader, Jin Jie, to prevent Admiral Chang from consolidating power with Russian support. Hannah, a Chinese Secret Service agent, joins them. Betrayals happen. Dima sacrifices himself to save them. The final mission involves a naval standoff. You must choose who dies to destroy the enemy carrier, Hannah or Irish. BF2042 later reveals both survived, proving nobody really dies unless you see the body twice in Battlefield 2042. By 2039, the world is falling apart. Rising sea levels and climate disasters have collapsed global economies. Billions become refugees, non-patrioteds or no-pats. These are soldiers without countries fighting not for governments but survival. Irish, the once idealistic Marine from Battlefield 4, now commands the warship Exodus, a floating base for displaced fighters and families. He leads the no-pats as their de facto general, embodying a new kind of soldier, one who answers to no flag. However, unity doesn't last. His former ally, Oz, a charismatic strategist with his own vision of the future, turns against him, manipulating US and Russian forces into using the no-pats as proxy armies. The world teeters on the brink of full-scale war as climate devastation turns cities into battlegrounds. Sand-covered Qatar, flooded Singapore, and frozen Antarctica. Amid these conflicts, the no-pats uncover mysterious black box data linked to a shadow organization called Sulis, the same name whispered during German experiments in Battlefield 5. Irish's story deepens as personal tragedy resurfaces. His wife died during the solar storm that crippled civilization, and his adopted son questions whether endless war is still worth fighting. Pack returns briefly only to die saving civilians during a storm assault mission, reminding players of Battlefield's ruthless cycle of sacrifice. 2042's story unfolds through live in-game events and lore briefings, hinting at a new war for control. Not over nations, but over truth itself. Battlefield 2142, fast forward 2 centuries, the planet has entered a new ice age following environmental collapse. Humanity splinters into 2 mega-factions, the European Union and the Pan-Asian Coalition. The fight isn't about ideology anymore, it's about survival. Resources are gone, arable land is buried under permafrost, and the remaining temperate zones become the new gold rush. The world of 2014-2 is defined by brutal asymmetrical warfare. Massive walking mechs patrol tundra plains, Titan-class airships float like mobile command centers, and soldiers fight with railguns, active camouflage, and cloaking drones. There's no single protagonist or cinematic campaign. Instead, the war is told through the perspective of millions of soldiers frozen in a cycle of conflict. Humanity has advanced technologically but regressed morally, echoing the same chaos from 1915, now just with colder armor. Titan mode, the signature battle format, becomes its own narrative. Factions launch these flying fortresses to annihilate each other's supply lines, ensuring that even the victors are left starving in the cold. The deeper lore suggests 2142's war might be the natural conclusion of the no-pat conflicts from 2042, with technology outpacing morality and mankind reduced to fighting over the last scraps of a dying planet. How it all connects. Across more than a century of fictional warfare, the Battlefield universe weaves threads that stretch from biplanes to battle mechs. Clyde Blackburn's daredevil escapades in Battlefield 1 set the stage for generations of soldiers to follow, as his descendant Henry Blackburn carries the name into Battlefield 3 trying to stop the next Great War. Henry's ally, Dima, connects Battlefield 3 and 4, forming the bridge between Cold War paranoia and the technological chaos of 2020. The CIA operative Kovic, who once interrogated Blackburn, returns in Battlefield 4, where his death passes leadership to Wrecker's Tombstone Squad. From there, Irish evolves from a passionate squad mate into the stoic commander of the no-pats in 2042, symbolizing Battlefield's shift from nationalism to survivalism. Even the mysterious Sulis organization from Battlefield 5 resurfaces decades later in 2042, blurring the line between secret experiments and climate warfare. Every conflict builds on the next, turning disconnected wars into a loose but persistent timeline. It's a legacy of violence, duty, and futility, one that echoes from the mud of Verdun to the frozen wastes of 2142, where humanity still hasn't learned a thing. And that soldier is every Battlefield storyline explained.